Welcome to Evo Genesis. Today I'm going to be talking about two not so great early 3D fighters. The interesting thing about this video is that I made it 8 years ago. I made it for my other channel, never got around to releasing it. Let's check out those two early 3D fighters. First we're going to talk about Battle Arena Toshin Remix. So as I was saying, Battle Arena Toshin Remix for the Saturn. The reason I'm doing Remix for the Saturn is I already did a video on Battle Arena Toshin for the PlayStation. And while I've had this game in my collection for a while, I've actually never played it. Let's get this out of the way. Battle Arena Toshin has not aged well at all. While Remix does add some cool features to the game, it just doesn't fix how slow the game moves. And I know a lot of people still love this game, but the game just moves way too slow and it's just not fun to me. But when this game was new, I was on the hype train with everybody else and loved it to death, but I think it was just because of the graphics. And while that may have worked when the game was new, gameplay is what makes the game worth playing today. What makes Battle Arena Toshin Remix a little more bearable is when you put it on an easy difficulty, it lets you map the special moves to buttons. Now while I'm not necessarily great at fighting games, I am good enough to pull off special moves, but in Toshin, sometimes they happen and sometimes they didn't. Now while I did really like this feature, it got to the point where I was just spamming attacks to win fights, and that just wasn't really fun as it ruined all the strategy in the game completely. Now while I did have a little bit of fun playing Toshin, it was quickly ruined by all the frustrating controls and speed of the game. Now one thing Toshin has going for it is its soundtrack. And the cool thing about it is both versions of the game have Red Book audio, so you can listen to the soundtrack whenever you want. Now I did say this game was called Battle Arena Toshin Remix, and I didn't just say that just so I could put an air horn noise in, which I promise I won't do ever again. But let me go ahead and tell you what this version of the game adds. Well, the first thing you'll notice about this game is it has an intro. Well, actually, hold on a second. The first thing you'll notice is this. But the next thing you'll notice is that this game has an intro. Yeah, way to keep up with the times, Toshin. Now the biggest addition to the game is it now has a story mode. The original game had a standard gauntlet of battles which ended in a boss fight with no endings for any characters at all. But Remix, it has a full story mode with voiceovers and everything.
Another lady! And look how you are dressed! It is shameful!
It's easy to move in this.
Everything they talk about is so deep. Just so meaningful. Nah, I'm just kidding. The dialogue's cheesy and the voice acting's terrible, but I love it.
To wield the white tiger.
Why do you keep talking about my sword? Do you know something I don't?
Sometimes I talk too much. I must go.
The game also adds a new secret final boss, Cupido. Adding a new boss character is cool, but she didn't seem as intimidating as Gaia or Sho. The best thing about Toshin Remix is the story mode, as that was the only thing really keeping me playing the game. And like I said, some people like this game. If you do, more power to you. But it's not a game I would recommend to someone wanting to try out some old 3D fighters.
No!
Next up on our list of early 3D fighters is Star Wars, Masters of Teräs Käsi, however you say it, your guess is as good as mine. Now this game is obviously a cash grab where they were like, 3D fighters are working, let's do Star Wars. In theory, a Star Wars fighting game isn't a bad idea. I mean, battles are such a big part of Star Wars and Wars is in the title. But instead this game is more like, ew, you got Battle Arena Toshin in my Star Wars. Now this game does have your standard Star Wars opening. The story is the Empire is pretty pissed off that the Death Star blew up. I mean, I'd be pretty pissed off if my moon-sized space station exploded too. So the Empire hires Arden Lin, the master of Teräs Käsi. Anyway, they want her to hunt down key members of the Rebel Alliance. While this wouldn't be stupid for a game where you were playing as a bounty hunter hunting down the rebels, it just doesn't explain why I have a game where Chewbacca is fighting Princess Leia. It just doesn't make any sense. Now I'm sure they could have come up with something else, like some secret galactic tournament or something like that. All of this wouldn't really matter as long as the game was good and it had some decent Star Wars characters to play as. but this game just drops the ball so hard. I mean, you have characters like that pig thing from Return of the Jedi and a Tusken Raider named Whore.
Knockout. You lose. Continue.
Like Toshin and Remix, this is a game I've had in my collection for a long time, but I just never played it. Okay, the way this game works is you have two fighting styles, without weapons and with weapons, with the exception of Thok and Arden Lin, who always have their weapons equipped. Every other character has to click R2 at the beginning of the battle to pull out their weapon. But there's two different fighting styles. Some characters like Han Solo have a mix of both moves, but if you're playing with Luke Skywalker, he has no moves without a weapon and all of his moves are with a lightsaber. While this game isn't great by any means, it's not terrible either, it's just not, really all that much fun. Now I know this game does have special moves, but I spent my Han Solo playthrough pretty much spamming Han Solo's one combo. The game just feels like it's missing that smooth combat that makes a game like Tekken such a timeless classic. One of the game's few redeeming qualities is its soundtrack. All the music is from the original trilogy. It's funny, it seems like that's a common theme with 3D fighters. Even if they're bad, they still have decent music. The game's backgrounds are pretty cool. Usually there's a decent amount of stuff going on in the background, like on Hoth, you have the snow speeders flying around. While this game is by no means the worst thing I've ever played, I still would not recommend it to anyone. So those were two early 3D fighters. Do you guys have any memories of these games? Maybe possibly say something in the comments. Does anybody actually watch these videos? And thanks for watching. Please subscribe. Later! So there we go. That's two early, not so great 3D fighters. A lot of fingers for two.